Hey yo, it's Blue, baby, and you're now rocking with Blue Dope. On today's episode, I have Keba Konte, founder of Red Bay Coffee. Now, you know, if it was my coffee shop, it would have been Blue Bay, but it's all love. The Bay Area is one of my favorite cities. Next time I go out there, I'm definitely going to have to stop it to one of his shops. At the end of the day, you don't hear too many people saying, hey, we're going to open up a brick and mortar business right now, right? People are trying to go e-commerce or bust. He started with brick and mortar. The beautiful thing is in his journey, he has the e-commerce going. So Red Bay Coffee is available for all of us if you're looking for something more artisanal in your morning journey. I can't wait to get into this episode. I learned a lot, and you could put this into any business that you're starting up too. It's Blue, baby. Hey, yo, it's Blue, baby, and it's another episode of Blue Dope. Today, I have none other than Keba Konte, the founder of Red Bay Coffee. Now, it seems like everyone in the Bay has been trying to start up a new tech company for years, but my brother said, we're going to go classic. We're going coffee beans, but we're going to
That's
do a
right.
unique spin on it. So,
Yeah,
Keba, welcome to
yeah.
Blue Dope.
Thank you, Blue. Appreciate you having me on.
There you go. I got to start out the gate. Are you originally from the Bay, or did you move
Yes,
to the Bay?
yes.
Yeah.
No, born and raised here. Yes.
Oakland?
San Francisco. Born and raised in San
Different.
Francisco. I was, budded in Oakland for the last 25 years. So
Okay.
first, I'm 55. I'm an OG. So,
There you
my
go.
first. But I grew up. My first daughter was born in San Francisco. My second daughter was born out here in the East Bay.
Nice, nice. Before we even get into
Mm-hmm.
things, I'm gonna ask 40 or too short?
40.
Ah, there you go. There
Easy.
you
That's
go.
easy for me. That's easy for me. So, that opens up a whole nother line of questions that, I'm not sure how much research you did, but
Uh-huh.
so that was kind of the golden era of hip hop, in the Bay.
Yes.
And I was a part of that.
Nice.
Because before I got into coffee, I was a photographer. I was a professional photographer. So I used to do the album covers for all these cats. So I did
Ooh. No,
all
we
40s.
we
Yeah,
we
I
gonna
did
get
all
there.
40s. Yeah. I did 40,000.
We
So that's why I'm invested. I'm
nice,
invested in 40.
nice,
Yeah.
nice, nice. Now I'm gonna get to that. I'm gonna get to that.
All right. Yeah.
I want to understand your upbringing. So what was it like for you growing up in San Fran in your era?
Yeah.
Paint
So,
the picture.
yeah. So, coming up early, 70s, middle school, very eclectic, multicultural city crowd,
Mm,
grew up, mostly with my moms, me and my two sisters, and went to a school called San Francisco Community School.
okay.
Pretty interesting place. They had us out there. We was going on camping trips, and there was a pool table in one of the classrooms, and so it was an interesting time.
Yeah.
Had a lot of freedom. Just on the bikes, running around all over the city. Getting into high school. Then that always takes a turn there. And then high school, I was like a high school jock. I was on the wrestling team,
Okay.
and
Okay.
did my thing in high school. And So yeah, growing up in the city, just man, that's like late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was a great time. That was
I mean,
pre.
was San Fran as beautiful back then as it is now?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Yeah. It ain't got no prettier. I mean, we had the same hills, the same architecture,
Nice.
the beautiful parks, and nice climate all year round.
Yes, yes.
I grew up, on the south side of the town where it was always foggy, so I couldn't wait really once I got to be an adult and went out on my own. Then I went out and moved at first to the sunny side of the city.
Okay.
But really, I guess my childhood ended really when I became a parent. At
Mm,
19.
got it,
So
got it.
I had my first daughter when I was 19. So that's kind of childhood was
Shift in
over.
responsibilities.
Oh yeah, that was a shift, and responsibilities, mind state of mind,
Mm,
and really, I guess that's probably when the hustle started at that point.
mm. So for you was the first, I guess, piece of business you went into. I mean, We're gonna go jump into the photography. We're gonna jump into coffee, right? But where did you
Yep.
start just trying to earn?
Well, my wife still doesn't believe this, but I've had so many jobs. You know, we could spend this whole episode just talking about the various jobs I've had. You know, the good, bad, and the ugly. Some wild ass, jobs. But I was a
What's the
doorman.
craziest one you did? What's the craziest one? We gonna jump right into it.
The craziest job I ever had. I worked for the San Mateo County Coroner's Office. And in the most part, we would go into people who had passed away and clean out their apartment. I didn't deal with the bodies well.
Okay.
Until this one day when we had to go to the hospital. And in the hospital, in the basement, there was a basement to the basement. And there was these boxes of jars of body parts and formaldehyde. And they could only keep it for so long. And they can't just like dispose of them. They have to bury them in a grave. So I was the last one hired. So we had to load these boxes up, take them to the graveyard, to the cemetery. There was a grave, and I was the last man hired. So I was the one in the grave, stacking these boxes up, and some of them were leaking with formaldehyde. That was the first time. And thank goodness, the last time I ever smelled that. If you ain't never smelled formaldehyde, you
quit after that, right?
You would think, but that was a one-time piece. That was about as wild as it got. Yeah.
So you mentioned the photography, and I did some studying on you, and I did know you were a photographer. I'm a photographer myself, so definitely an affinity for that. So let's talk about the photography. How did you kind of switch into that, and what got you your start there?
Well, my mother was a photographer. Her friends were photographers, and so I was really kind of grew up around photographers. So I was very comfortable around the medium. My mom would photograph me and my sisters as models, and she eventually built a dark room in our basement. And so in the evening, she'd kind of set dinner up, and then she'd spend the rest. She would like disappear. So she'd be in her dark room, until the late hours. And so eventually, when I got into college and I started doing photography, I took over that dark room. That became my dark room. So I did lots and lots of work in that dark room. But so she gave me a camera when I was about 13 years old. I had a little Olympus, and then in high school, it was it was like a toy. I'd kind of play with it a little bit here and there. But it wasn't until I got to college and I was, getting more into the activism, really. And then in some of these street protests and seeing how they were reported in the news. And I was like, it was just like total opposite from the experience and what I saw. So I started to bring my camera to document, the things that I saw. I'm talking about, protests like the Rodney King protest, anti-Iraq war, the first one, and some of these sort of street actions.
It's like early 90s, like 91, 92.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of when I really picked up that camera. It wasn't a hustle at that point, but really when I got my chops, then I started, making myself available to, to some of the cats, who were starting, to make music. Really my very first photo shoot was this cat named Ray. And he had a group called The Coup. And so I did some music for them, so his rap name is Boots. So you might know him as Boots Riley, who's now a filmmaker. He did Sorry to Bother You. Which, by the way,
that was like
one
of your first shoots.
Him. Yeah, that was my first shoot back in like 92. That was 92.
Wow.
And then he still lives in Oakland, so we still, friends, and he actually recruited me to participate as a little cameo in that movie. So I don't know if you've seen the movie, but
so you got some acting credits too.
I guess I do.
You got to add that to the bio.
Well, I lucked out because I don't think I could act a lick, but luckily they just photographed me, and I showed up. If you've seen the movie, there's a reoccurring character who might be his father figure. And he carries his picture in different jobs and places he goes, and he puts it up on the wall. So, and the photograph depicts the same character in different facial expressions and approval and disapproval and whatnot. And so that was me. So really, I just had to do a photo shoot. So I was in the movie as in the form of a photo shoot. Yeah.
There you go.
But I'll take the credit. I'll take the credit. Yes. Yeah. Give me a SAG card.
I got to get to Mr. Earl Stevens. So how did you connect with 40?
Well, so I did that piece for Boots, and then there was another cat, Nafa, who was African Identity. I did a photo shoot for him, and then he was working with these graphic artists named Funky Fat Graphics, and so this is like 92, 93, and they like my style, and they'd asked me to if I could shoot some of these other acts. And so this was really, when the whole Bay Area hip hop scene just really started to flourish. And the thing about it was the thing about this music scene was very independent. There were no major labels in the Bay Area. There just were no major labels here. So we just did it ourselves, which is kind of that whole Oakland vibe anyway, just kind of do it yourself. So then, I just kind of got in tight with that whole crew, and then I just became that dude. And it got to be, I was doing every week, 1 or 2, 3 photo shoots, then started shooting for some magazines, The Source, Vibe, Rolling Stone, Rap Pages magazine, 4080
So you
magazine,
were the guy in the Bay.
Murder Dog magazine. Yes. I was doing, I was, and then, E40, Master P, Richie Rich, and tons of cats. And, inevitably, like the best photo shoots were the albums that never really popped off. Right. But what I really enjoyed about it was I brought this kind of photo documentary style, because I was studying photojournalism at SF State. So, and my mom was a portrait photographer. So, so I had the portrait, angle. I knew how to light somebody up, find the angle, right? But I also knew how to capture a moment and context and find them in the environment and, and framing and composition. So I had those kind of two were my strong suits. And so I really enjoyed going out to these different hoods around the Bay Area, from Palo Alto to Marin City to,
Vallejo,
Oakland, Vallejo, all, Sacramento, this whole area. And we were shooting film too. I was shooting slides, which is kind of a shame because, most of those things, the graphic artist gave it to the artist. And, so I don't even have a lot of that work, or at least some of the best piece of it. But I still have some documentation. I got some of the finished posters and whatnot.
Nice. So how'd you transition that to coffee? It seems like it's like a big change.
Well, there was another transfer. There was another transition. There was a couple of transitions, and really, for me, it didn't feel as much like a transition as just these layers. It just felt like just me as a human being. I just kept getting these layers, and I was always just very curious and wanting to try new things and explore different interests. So doing the music photography, but at the same time I was doing that, actually I was using some of that money to fund my trips for traveling, because I really had a passion for traveling and I had a passion for Africa. So I was in a political organization, the All African People's Revolutionary Party, and where Africa is primary. And so anyway, I went to Senegal, I went to I went to South Africa. I was in South Africa in 1994, photographed the election of Nelson Mandela. And then came back, and I was in DC and in 95 for the Million Man March. Photographed
Nice.
that back in, in Kenya and Tanzania. And so, those, I wasn't really making so much money on those, but I was making some beautiful photography.
Yes.
And like the money I was earning in the music, that was kind of funding those trips. So then kind of by the late 90s, the scene was kind of, sort of plateaued, I'll say. And
Okay.
and then I kind of discovered this technique where I could print my photographs on wood. Now
Mm.
that was a breakthrough, right? Because my father was a carpenter,
Okay.
so he passed when I was young. I was 14. But as a young child, I'd be on the job site with him. He'd let me hold a tape measure or something on my belt, and but I'd always, aspired to be like my dad, and
Yeah.
want to build things with wood and with my hands. And so really, then when the moment, I was experimenting and I was able to print this photograph on wood. I'm not just talking about like gluing a piece of print to the wood, but
Yeah.
like just the image, the black. So a black and white photograph is really just black, and the
Got it.
white is just the color of the paper.
Got it.
So imagine the black, the shadows overlaid on a piece of wood with the grains, and so you see that grain and stuff. So it was black in the color of the wood, black and brown, black and tan.
Mm.
And then you see that wood grain, and it looked like almost human skin. So it
Yes.
even looked, it was more even compelling than or lifelike in some ways than a black and white photograph. So this blew my mind, and I instantly saw a through line for years to come, and that came true, of
Mm.
the possibilities of print of photographs on wood and what you could do with that. So next thing you know, I'm printing on drawers, on ironing boards. I'm taking the drawer and breaking it up and nailing it back together and burning it and printing, and just layering it with just stitching on copper and just these sort of multi-layered mixed media images, and it was just kind of a new look. People responded to it.
Mm.
I called it photo montage on wood, and and then I could scale these things up really huge, 12 foot.
And I mean, really, for you, you were kind of taking the best of what your mom did and your father, and you got to put that together.
And it was yeah, it was like my destiny. And
Wow.
and I started swinging them,
Nice.
and I did it from a very entrepreneurial space, right? So I
Mm.
did not necessarily follow some of the traditional artist gallery kind of processes. I had not studied fine art,
Okay.
so I always felt like a little bit of an outsider in that
Mm.
world. But I did my thing, and people responding, and I was curating my own exhibition, but I was also in some galleries. I had some couple museum shows, and traveled and did some things abroad. And I kind of ran that, published a bunch of books about it, and so that was I
I,
was running that for a
I,
decade at least.
I mean, when you speak about fine arts, did you ever feel like excluded, like it wasn't an inclusive environment in the Bay Area, or did you, did you feel like it was welcoming you as a black man, or you just had to just make your own route? How did you feel with that?
Well, I mean, the art world there's different layers and tiers, right? There's sort of the community galleries, these nonprofit
Okay.
galleries, and you can get in there. But in terms of really excelling in in a career where you're featured in Art in America or Juxtapose, or some of these high level art, or or some of the big commercial galleries. Yeah, I never did quite connect to there, right? So it's not like they
Okay.
never had black artists,
Okay.
but there's barriers for sure. That then this was before this sort of renaissance of
Mm.
black arts, and like like right, I think the last 10 years, 10, 15 years has been a beautiful renaissance of
Yes.
some, brilliant visual artists, conceptual artists, installation artists. And it's just got so expansive. And, the Carrie Mae Weems and the Kara
Mm-hmm.
Walkers and the, and there's so many of these Hank Willis, Thomas, so many of these artists that Sanford Biggers, so these are the people kind of in this community, went to school here or, came out of here, or exhibited.
Yep.
So excluded, yeah. I mean, I just didn't break through, and maybe it was, my strategy,
Okay.
there's strategies, right? If you decide to do it on your own, then you go ahead and do it on your own, but if you
True.
early, I think that's what
Oakland mentality.
yeah, that's right, for better or for worse. And so galleries can sort of help your career and get you, where you're not just kind of selling something out the house to a random person that happened to pay the price, so there's a way to go about it.
Nice. So going from that to, I had heard that you kind of wanted to make your own exhibits, right? So that's where the cafes came in. Was that the natural progression?
That was the progression. That was the carryover. So the carryover was, all right, I'm doing my own exhibitions anyway. I'm gonna get a space. I'm gonna curate it. I'm gonna call it XYZ Gallery, whatever, and invite, work up a community list, bring people out, have a band, have a DJ, bring some food, sell some artwork, curate it with some other artists. And so that was sort of rinse and repeat. And we would do that and building these happenings. So then an opportunity came up, North Berkeley, sort of a wealthy part of the Bay Area. This little diner was going out of business and they offered for us to take it over. Me, one of my artist colleagues, and my wife took over the spot and opened Guerrilla Cafe. And what the idea was my interest was like, all right, we'll sell some coffee and but this is going to be a gallery, right? This is where I was going to. So that was I got into coffee to boost my artist career, and and coffee put me in the headlock, and I'm still in that headlock.
But I mean, just to be clear, it wasn't like you were failing at photography at the time and you were looking for a new career. It was just, I'm gonna do what I can out here.
Yeah, I was, like I said, I'm I don't know if I have a short attention span as much as I've just got an expansive, attention span. And so that just sounded, so really I got into coffee to have my own gallery.
Yeah.
Right. And the photography was the gallery. So then I started learning about coffee, but that wasn't, the interest wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna start this coffee career. It was like, this is a place where people can come. It's not as formal as a gallery, right? Because you do a gallery, you'll get a crowd on the opening night, opening day, and then people will trickle in through the month. If you're in a gallery, then they'll trickle in. Maybe they got some collectors. They're taking 50%, on the cut, which that always just is never sit right well with me. Yeah, I know they got bills to pay too, but so anyway, so that's when so really I got into the coffee to for the gallery seed piece, but it was fascinating because now all of a sudden we're sourcing coffee from Africa, from the Caribbean, from Central America, places that I had been. So I had kind of some connection with the roots of this coffee, learning about coffee culture started in Ethiopia. Coffee started in Ethiopia and exported around the world. Right? We think about.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we think about Colombia, right? As an origin.
Exactly.
We think about Brazilian coffee. That coffee there is it has the DNA of Ethiopian coffee, and it's been transplanted there as a cash crop. And because coffee did not grow naturally there, That's why when you go to these places, very often they don't even drink coffee, right? They'll drink tea, they'll drink some Nescafe or something, but they don't even drink the coffee that they grow. It's just a cash
Yeah.
crop for them, you know.
Yeah.
And they're doing a beautiful job at it. I'm not mad. And you know, now it's around the world. So, you know, that's kind of why I came up with that phrase. Coffee is Africa's gift to the world.
Mm, mm.
Just
People
because
don't even know that.
that's why I got it on t-shirts, on posters. I
Yes.
wrote it on the wall. You know, I got Africa right there. They're gonna know it. They're gonna know it if they're around me.
So at what point did you decide you needed to make your own, you know, actual brand of coffee versus just being
All
a
right.
cafe owner?
Yeah, good question. So I had the first cafe, and then, you know, that was a pretty small business, and there was 3 of us trying to divide that, you know, but so it wasn't very lucrative, but we created such a vibe in there, right?
Nice.
Beautiful artwork, always had art exhibitions. You know, it was not the sort of gallery for myself that I had imagined, but you know, but we did shows for all of our artist friends, local and international. We just had, beautiful food, you know, grilled sandwiches, waffles, polenta with poached eggs and specialty coffee. And so we created a vibe there. It was 20 seats or something. So people would be standing to get in, and, you know, we had no Wi-Fi, you know, so it was just kind of that vibe. So even though we didn't make a lot of money, we really set the tone and established ourselves as operators. And so that opened up another opportunity, you know, in San Francisco, opened up a shop there, more on my own. And then in both of those locations, worked with the top coffee roasters that I could find. And then what that did was really, that set the bar very high, right? By the time I wasn't thinking necessarily, okay, I got to replace them with myself at some point. But I did the right thing by getting the best you could find. Of course, you always want to do that. But eventually I was like, you know what? It's coffee, and it's coming from Africa, and I'm buying it from these very nice, but, you know, white hipsters. And they're selling me coffee from Africa for a premium price.
And you're like, I gotta cut out the middleman.
Yeah, I gotta cut out the middleman. That's what it came down to. I gotta cut out and I did that, you know, I was doing that over and over. I did that with the hot sauce. We were buying some hot sauce, so I started making the hot sauce. Cut out the middle. But the biggest cut out the middleman was the coffee piece. And I just had to learn that. And I was like, all right, how hard could it be? It's one ingredient. It was hard, but, you know, but I just set out to teach myself on how to do that, and did it.
So let's go into years later in Red Bay. It's starting to be successful, right? You open up more locations. How many brick and mortar locations do you actually have now of your brand?
We have 5 open today, and we've got 3 under construction, and and we're negotiating a couple other leases. So,
what cities?
The Oakland, San Francisco, and Los Angeles.
Nice.
So the Los Angeles ones will open later this year.
Nice. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Now, I mean, I'm sure your supply chain looks a lot different now, right? So if we're speaking of that, instead of just, you know, your sourcing sounds going straight to Africa, you're going straight to the source. What's that process like, even just picking where you're going to source?
That's beautiful, really. So when you start out, right? When you're starting out and you're just kind of getting started, you know, you can't really buy enough volume to make any kind of moves like that, right? And when you're making those moves, you got to really be moving some substantial weight. So you're just buying from the local importers at a premium, but it's still way cheaper than roasted coffee, of course. So then, but, you know, as we started to kind of build our weight up, and, you know, and then we're showing up in the press, they kind of find you very often.
Nice.
Right. Because they're the green growers. So they're looking for roasters. right? Because that's their
Yeah.
customers.
Yes.
But a lot of times these relationships come to you in all sorts of different ways. Introductions by a third party. They may come and knocking on your door. I'll travel to Ethiopia, and someone is telling me about a really good farm, and we'll go find them and build a relationship. Someone forward me an article, probably 2015, 16, of the story about Jackie Robinson's son, David Robinson. It was in the New York Times, and I was reading this, and he had moved to Tanzania, East Africa, 33, well, now probably 36 years ago. And he was just kind of quietly just growing coffee. Now, it's very few African-American coffee roasters, but there's very, very, very few African-American coffee growers.
Okay,
so
got it.
I was like, that was incredible. So I did some research. I found the email, reached out. He hit me back. He was heading to New York, where his mom lives. She's still alive. He goes visit her every year. I said, hey, I'll meet you there. So I flew to New York, met him, stayed in Brooklyn. We met there. He had some samples. Yeah, I see you. Flatbush. Oh, 42. I didn't even see 42. That piece.
This is a play on Jackie Robinson.
Yeah.
Michelle, my boy Dan's.
I saw the top, Flatbush, but I didn't see the 42 until now. Right on. I see it loud and clear. Beautiful. No, that's great. So we met. The coffee was delicious. He's doing some really positive work out there with the co-op that he did.
Nice.
And we just connected solid. He's been a mentor and just an elder. Statesman, and he's been our largest trading partner ever since then. Since then.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So who would have ever known that Jackie Robinson's son went into that line, right?
Yeah, right. Well,
people don't know that story.
Well, I mean, some people may know, but most people don't know that Jackie Robinson himself, when he left baseball, became an executive at a coffee company. Chuck Full of Nuts. There's a coffee called Chuck Full of Nuts. You'll see them cans around. So
he was
Jackie
involved
Robinson
with that.
Worked there. He was involved in that.
Wow.
Yeah,
there you go. So what you doing is not too far off.
That's what I'm saying. It's just layers, right? It was just layers.
Yes.
Like, because I love to cook. I love to, so for instance, right, when you think about these artist receptions, right, we're bringing some food, we're bringing music, we're When we opened up Guerrilla Cafe, we just did that like every day.
Yeah,
right?
you curating experiences.
Yeah, and opening a coffee roasting company. I mean, we do so much more than roast coffee, but we definitely are creating experiences there. Just one little, glimpse, and we can kind of move back and forth in the conversation. But so when we finally got to the point where we opened this factory, right, our roastery, 6,000 square feet.
Nice.
We were using a part of it to roast coffee and to bag coffee, but we had a lot of extra room. So we just kind of opened it up to the community with tables, and it was like a cafe. So people could just come and hang, and then pretty soon, my firstborn daughter, who's a grown woman, and she's, an event planner. She's organizes weddings, and she's a bartender. She's a baller in her own right, in so many respects. But so Jessica started doing the events. So she threw a block party that was just off the hook. And then everyone else wanted to throw a party. So we started doing events. We built that up to like 200 events a year. And it kind of culminated in Jadena when he did his last tour, 85 to Africa. He did a little, sneak party, announced it a day ahead of time. There was literally a line around the block. We had probably 400 people inside the spot that was permitted occupancy for 23. And he just threw this wild, it was super packed in. This is pre-COVID. This is a few months. This is a few months before COVID broke. So that just got, just like, and these are people who had no interest in coffee, did not have any idea about Red Bay Coffee as a brand, So we would always use that opportunity to introduce ourselves, and that's in a big way how we built the brand.
Nice. Now I know definitely in the beginning, it sounds like you used a lot of your own probably cash from other ventures that you were in. At this point to scale, did you ever had to go out and get VC backing, especially being in the Bay Area with all those VCs out there?
Um, I mean, we built up to that, but
Okay.
no, we started, you know, so like I said, the when I wanted to start roasting coffee and started doing that part, I was like, all right, I need a place just to just learn this craft. And
Mhm.
so nowadays, if you want to roast coffee and just get it and dabble in it, in most big cities, New York, LA, Oakland, San Francisco, they got these places called co-roasting.
Okay.
And they'll set up a warehouse with 2 or 3 roasters, and you can go and just pay for time in on this equipment, and they got instructions. That wasn't around when I got started.
Okay.
And you couldn't just go to another company and hey, I want to learn without having a job there, and I'm not trying to work for nobody.
Yeah.
Since I was burying body parts in the cemetery. you know, so I built a little. We had a little garden room. Level kind of size of a 1-car garage facing our garden. And so I fixed that place up and put a little roaster, countertop, grinder, water boiler, counter, hooked it up, a little sink, and da da da. And I called that the coffee dojo.
Nice.
But
Nice.
even to build that out, I needed that was the first time I raised some money. And that was just some
Okay.
friends and family. I
Wow.
raised 20,000 and 10 in cash and 10 in credit card space, right? So I spent 10
Wow.
hooking up the space, hit my little coffee lab, and then in the credit card space I would use to buy beans and just
Yeah,
roast and
wow.
train. I'm watching YouTube videos. There's this Ethiopian sister had a coffee shop in Oakland, and I walk into there and she got a little hot plate and a wok. She's mixing, roasting
Wow.
coffee on the spot, and so I'm kind of
Wow.
picking up little cues, from here and there, and then eventually I went and took some more formal training.
Nice.
But so that was how we got the dojo started, and that was the first money raised. Then after that, we probably did a Kickstarter, right, when
Okay.
we wanted to
Okay.
open the first little coffee shop, and that was so we raised. So in Kickstarter at that time, 50,000 was the most anybody had ever raised in the coffee category, but
Okay.
we needed like 100 to
Mm.
to to open this shop. And this was like a
Mm.
shipping container that I wanted to convert into a coffee shop with the sides with like kind of roll up, like kick up,
So
like
so
the
you were
wing, like
ahead
the
with
wing.
the whole container game because now they turn those into houses.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I was early on that, and I wanted the sides to lift up like them
Mm.
iconic cranes in Oakland that even the Star Wars characters were built off of, modeled
Nice.
behind. And so long story short, we had a successful campaign and raised $88,000
Wow.
there, broke all
Wow.
the records, and then from there we did some community bank debt. We did some not quite venture, but we did some convertible notes. We did some
Okay.
angel, and then eventually
Nice.
we did a VC round, and
Nice.
then we did a second VC round, and so currently, as we speak, we're raising a third, our Series B round
Beautiful. Beautiful.
of venture capital. So, but yeah, that was and still is a learning curve. Each round is the expectations are different, the
Yeah,
demands
100%.
are different. What's required of us, is changed, and so um, yeah, the due diligence process is, whew, yeah, there's a lot.
Now I've been to the Bay once, and I could say I loved every part of it that I saw. And one thing, I've heard it a lot before I went, but they say Oakland is actually a lot like Brooklyn, even just the geography of it and where it's placed versus San Fran. But like Brooklyn, I did notice a lot of gentrification. So I was
hmm
curious to see how that actually impacted your business.
Um, Well, so really coming into this, with an activist background and just being an active member in our community. At that time, gentrification was one of the biggest issues. This is before COVID, before this most recent uprising of white supremacy,
Yes.
and everything else. But and very often coffee shops and coffee culture have often been kind of the spearhead of gentrification, right?
Mm-hmm.
First the coffee
Mm-hmm.
shop, then the hipsters,
Yes.
and then the rents go up and we go out, and
Yep.
so even getting into being opening shops in Oakland and opening the coffee company, I had to ask myself, well, what role are we going to play in that? Is that we're just going to be another spearhead for this movement? And so, so obviously that's not what we wanted to do. So what we wanted to do was the opposite of that, and is create opportunities for people to make a living wage so they could stay in their community. This was happening, whether I like it or not, whether I did anything or not, but any actions that I took, I just wanted to make sure we were pushing it in the right direction. So, so this is, when we got started in 2014, federal minimum wage was like $7. The local minimum wage was $8.50. We were paying folks $15 an hour.
Wow.
Today we give everybody stock options in the company.
Nice.
From the part-time baristas on up, everybody, people packing the beans.
So you're publicly traded?
No, we're not publicly traded.
No.
Stock options in stock in the company stock.
Got it. Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah. Not yet, but thank you for that. Put that out in the universe. We'll
Put it in the air.
We might get there. Yeah.
So, I mean, definitely one of the things that you focus on is just being gourmet coffee. I mean, so what is really the difference between the traditionals versus the gourmets?
Yeah. Well, I would say, the first part is where that coffee is being grown, how it's being processed, and I'll go back and fill in where it's being grown, how it's being processed, how it's being roasted, and in some ways how it's even being brewed and served. So where it's being grown, is it in the most gourmet coffee comes from the highest of altitudes, right? The higher it is, the more intense, more dense the bean is, the more flavor it has, the higher just quality it is, the better tasting.
Nice.
The very lowlands, coffees they grow fast. They have a lot of caffeine. It's a different sort of type of plant called Robusta coffee. It just doesn't have the same kind of flavor, but you can get more on the plant. It's a lot more productive, but it's cheaper. So, I mean, really, if we even ask why gourmet coffee, like why? Yeah, I just wanted to participate in the nice, because there's a lot of exploitation, right? If you're trying to have a race to the bottom price and be the cheapest coffee, there's no way. One, you'll be exploiting the earth, you'll be exploiting the people, and you're going to make a crappy product. And you'll be competing with companies that are doing it on scale that you could never touch anyway. So, and that's not a story that I would even want to tell. So that's why gourmet coffee, right? I wanted to get in on the good stuff and tell beautiful stories, and we could sell it for a higher price. That means we could have a better impact on the farmers, on our employees, on our community. So talked about where it's grown and then how it's processed, right? Process is coffee grows as a fruit. It's called a cherry. And the coffee bean is the pit of that cherry. And it's a red, ripe, and you could eat the fruit, delicate skin. It's a mildly sweet fruit. more oblong in shape, about the size of a cranberry maybe. And anyway, so there's I won't get too technical, but there's just different methods to how you get the fruit, the seed out of the fruit, and how you dry it and process
Got
it.
it.
So then we get, and that's happens at origin. Origin is everywhere, and all over, more like the equator, Africa, high altitudes, Central America, South America, Southeast Asia, New Zealand, but coffee does not grow in Europe. It does not grow in America. They got some experiments in California, but there's no real production here. Of course, Puerto Rico and Hawaii, but mainland, it doesn't happen. So we get the coffee here, and then the next piece is, how you roast it, right? We don't have, so we're roasting in relatively small batches of 150 pounds, at a time now, right? That's now, as big as we are, or at least at our scale. And you roast, you just roast it to not cover up a defective product, right? Because if you're getting this cheap coffee and it's not going to be that good, and it's coming from here, and you want it to be consistent, then you kind of just roast it really dark, and that kind of disguises, some of those defects, what we call them. So, so for us, we got this beautiful, expensive coffee that's been processed with love, and a lot of hands have touched this coffee. And we want to highlight all the very subtle, nuanced flavors and scents and notes that coffee has to offer. So we roast it just to its sweet spot, right? We want to have enough in the roast to give it some like little toasty, nutty, chocolatey notes, but still, if it's got some floral notes or some fruity notes, we want to kind of keep those, and don't roast those delicate things out also. So it's a real fine line.
It almost sounds like wines, right? Trying to get to that perfect taste and all those different hints.
It really is. And the wine industry was early on to that, right? So, so how we think about coffee 20 years ago is how wine was maybe 100 or 200 years ago, right? So, so the whole level of upscale wine it wasn't like that from the beginning, right? So they developed the palate. But yeah, so in wine, they have the sommelier, right? That's the expert wine taster that could just go off and analyze the most subtle notes. In coffee, we call those the Q graders. And it's, it's a certification that you spend 6 days of testing and rigorous blindfold and this and that, and triangulation, tasting and experiments, and to pass that. And this is something that was developed in order for the global coffee industry to get on the same page on how to describe, how to talk about, how to communicate these flavors, whether you're at a farm in Guatemala, Ethiopia, at a roastery in Japan, at a trading post in Germany, or at a coffee shop in San Francisco.
I mean, it sounds like there's going to be a lot of growth and opportunity in the industry from what you're saying.
Well, yeah, and that's a good point, right? So a lot of times, so I'm a big advocate for people joining this industry. Get into this, I'm trying to get Black people into coffee. This is our shit, right? Yeah, coffee comes from Africa. This is ours. It's your culture. It's your culture. It's your heritage, right? It's your inheritance, if you will. Yes. Claim it, right? And it's more than just owning a coffee shop or being a barista, right? You could be quality control. You could be sourcing. You could be traveling to make sure they treating people right, or you could be training. You could be developing the software. You could be repairing the equipment, the espresso machines, the roasters. I mean, there's just so many. It's a $50 billion industry in the U.S. alone every year. $50 billion.
Wow. Wow. No, no. I mean, with that said, like when it comes to your own scale, right? Do you ever have a goal of making this a franchise potentially where I can own my own Red Bay coffee?
Well, we've definitely fantasized about that, right? Because
Hmm.
when we want to grow and scale the business,
Yes.
and you want to
Yes.
scale as fast as you can, that is still sustainable growth, right? That you don't burn yourself out and crash and burn. And sometimes you say, oh, actually, if we started just franchising, then that's a way to accelerate the scaling. But to franchise, is easier said than done. There are
Mm,
a ton of regulations to protect
got it.
the franchisor, the person who buys the
Hmm.
franchise. There's a lot
Okay.
of legal protections to protect, because there's a lot of scam franchises, right? So
Yes. Yes.
um and we haven't, so you would need to do like 10 of these things over and over and over, where you could just have a Bible on how to do it. And we just
Wow.
haven't
Yeah.
been creating cookie cutter locations. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like we got 5 locations now, a couple in the pipeline, but that doesn't count the 5 or 6 places that I've either built and moved on from. You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
um, so in a but the shipping container, I think that would be something that I would like to franchise. When
Nice.
that day comes,
Nice.
um, but then you gotta kind of monitor and control the quality, and now your brand is out there and other people are handling it, and yeah, oh man,
You don't want to lose that authenticity. You're curated the same way you curated events. You've curated the coffee.
we have. And I would be excited. I get, the thing that really inspires me for the franchise piece is one, we could be getting our people into coffee, and we could be getting our
Yes.
people into a business, because it's not easy. That doesn't come natural for everybody to create a brand and a menu and a look and
Hmm.
not everybody necessarily has that expertise on their team. So we could bring that. So that part is exciting to me, and I think there's a lot of ways that we could develop something really inspiring and interesting. Um, but yeah, that's just down the road. We're just not there yet.
Well, I do have to congratulate you on some of the big box store moves that you've made. Right. So how has it been dealing with some of these big box stores that you've actually moved product to?
Hmm. It is it's a learning process, and I would say that some are different than others. Some are easy, like Trader
Mm,
Joe's. So Trader
yes.
Joe's is one. So we got in Northern California, it's about 66 Trader Joe's,
Wow.
um, and they definitely had some price pressure on us,
Mm,
and we
mm.
could not offer the coffee that we offer, like our signature line.
Yeah.
That goes for 15, 16, up to $20 a bag. Um, they wanted to sell it for $10. We
It's
just,
not the
that's
same.
just that
Yeah.
I can't do it, right?
Yeah.
It would piss off all my other relationships, and everybody
Yes.
just wouldn't buy it there. It would just be disaster.
Yes. Yes.
So what we did was we created a unique sort of value engineered product
Yes.
that is
Just for Trader
special,
Joe's.
just for Trader Joe's and other opportunities like Trader Joe's. So we call it
Got it.
Beautiful Coffee to the People. It's a different kind of packaging. It's still branded Red Bay, but it looks separate.
Nice.
It's a distinct thing. And now we could use coffees that are, say, so like green coffee, like when it comes to us raw, but it's been
Mhm, mhm.
processed from the farm, and so that we call that green coffee. It has a long
Got it.
shelf life, 12 to 18 months. When you roast the coffee, now it has a pretty short shelf life, three
Mm.
to 8, 10 weeks, depending on the packaging
Oh,
and other
wow.
things.
Wow.
So it's like bread. It's like, yeah, having a wheat, right? And then you grind that wheat and break a piece of loaf of bread. That's kind of what it's like from going from green
Got
to
it.
roasted coffee. And then And then so what so when you're buying green coffee, you could buy green coffee sort of towards the end of its life. But and that's when you start getting deals on it. But as long as we roast it while it's still good in its good zone, and so it's still ethically sourced. We're still taking care of our farmers, and it's still quality coffee and at the 80 plus score.
Okay.
So we've got little tricks like that and other ways where we could sort of, make the numbers make sense. So yeah, Trader Joe's, that's a big box store. They're moving it. We got
And,
Target.
and I mean,
Yep.
I'd like to even say, I mean, I heard usually Trader Joe's demands you to white label it, and then they kind of throw their name on it. So how did you even break that barrier of being able to
Yeah.
still have the Red Bay Coffee logo on that?
Well, that would have been sort of easier in some respects, right? Because then
Got
we
it.
could we wouldn't have to deal with all those other complications. But so yeah, 80% of the products in Trader Joe's are branded Trader Joe's.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now we were the first coffee ever in Trader Joe's that was non Trader Joe's branded.
Nice.
And then I started seeing some other of my other Black coffee roaster people out there, brands showing up at Trader Joe's. So
Wow.
Trader Joe's made a deliberate effort to start approaching Black coffee roasters.
Wow.
And
Wow.
and I commend them. And they really still haven't made a big deal about it. They haven't put out a press release about it.
Mm.
But they're doing it. So hats off to Trader Joe's for that.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean,
But
do you feel
yeah,
like you mentioned Target too? Like, do you feel like just having your name and brand kind of more out there, is it bringing more direct business back to you?
it's hard to measure, right? If somebody
Yeah.
sees your product at Target, it definitely brings more awareness, right?
Yes.
But often, we'll get outside of the sort of immediate Bay Area where we really built up our name, and people may not know us, and as close as Sacramento is, right? But and there's a lot of coffee on the shelf, right? There's
Yes.
a lot of competition there, and we're not the cheapest, and we're not trying to be the cheapest, right? And you could go there, and ours is like $15.99, and there's a bag next to us for $6.99, $5.99, and I'm like, wow. So that's a very competitive landscape,
Yes.
but that's just where you have to sort of be able to communicate your value proposition, and
Mhm.
so we're hitting our numbers, and
Nice.
we're growing, and so, but it does open up it does open up other opportunities. For instance, um, I've been developing a RTD, a ready to drink coffee in a
Okay,
can.
nice. Nice.
So that's something I'm really excited about, because that all of a sudden I don't have to worry about the short shelf life. Like you wouldn't expect to buy, a bag of $17 whole bean, beautiful coffee at 7-Eleven or something, right?
No.
That wouldn't
No.
even connect. However,
You'll
you
get a
know,
quick can.
hey, you can get a can that's basically in the refrigerator. It's like the energy drink, and
Yep.
it's the same coffee. Beautiful relationships, getting it from David Robinson, our these beautiful family in Guatemala, and
Nice.
we go through that process, and it's a plant-based lattes. So so our people who are lactose intolerant, they could deal with it.
Nice.
And so so we're opening up some of those opportunities, and that can obviously scale much bigger.
Now I know your e-com has grown, but I did want to ask, is there still a difference in what we would get from the e-commerce, just buying something on your website, or are those the same beans that you're using at your local locations?
Yeah, same exact beans. It's came in off the same roaster. We're comes out of the roaster. We're bagging these beans up, and some go fulfilling the online orders, or some go to the store, or
Nice.
some are on the shelves right there, and you just come and pick it up. So yeah, it's the exact same product.
Now I did want to ask, like, just being a co-founder with your wife, right?
Uh
And
huh.
going through that, what is work-life balance like firstly, and how do you guys kind of separate everything work from just weekend or whatever the weekend might look like for you?
Yeah. That's a great question. So my wife Raquel is brand manager. Oh no,
Nice.
the chief of brand. Excuse me. She's the
Okay,
chief of
nice.
brand here at Red Bay Coffee. So she grew up in Denmark.
Oh,
So
wow.
she's an Afro Dane,
Wow.
and Denmark Danish design. When you think about some of this like stylish kind of modern furniture and
Furniture,
that
right?
whole
Yeah.
right, so that whole sort of look is a very Danish sensibility. So
Yes.
that's second nature to her.
Yes.
When I'm talking about earlier, my comment was, everybody doesn't necessarily have sort of like this design, team around them. I'm married into that. So I married very well.
There you go.
I'll say that just off the top. So she brings so much, and she also worked at Levi Strauss for like 18
Oh,
years.
wow.
But
Which is
before,
they're headquartered in San Fran, right?
yes,
Levi's?
that's right. That's
There you
right.
go.
Yeah.
There you
So
go.
she was recruited, and that's how she came out here. She was recruited by Levi's to come
Ah,
out here to do that. And then, so she kept her job while we were at Gorilla Cafe, Chasing Lions Cafe.
mm,
That was my spot in the city. And then by the time we started Red Bay together, so she, I'm an artist, I'm a builder, but she kind of
yes.
keeps the focus of a brand, the story, the
Nice.
red thread that is consistent through the whole thing, the subtle things that most people will never even recognize, materials, finishes, what you're saying, But to answer your question more directly, I just want to at least give some more context, like
Yes, yes.
what she brings to it, and um, and we're both Leos.
Ah,
But no, we actually are a great team. We work really well together.
nice.
She has a couple small businesses on the side,
Wow, wow.
so she really works like nonstop.
So
Like
so do you how do you turn it off? When do
six
you turn it
o'clock. At
off?
6 o'clock, I turn it off. I'm off.
There
I'm
you
I'm
go.
out. I'm out working out. I'm
There
watching
you go.
some YouTube videos. I'm in the garden, and she
Nice.
goes hard. But
Yeah, yeah.
it's also not just a job. This is something that we're both really passionate about,
Nice.
that we're invested in deeply, obviously. So on the weekends, yeah, that's what we're talking about. When we're together, that's what we're talking about. But we're also talking about our children.
Yes.
We have things in common. We love nature, so we go on the walks in the nature. We look, we garden. We just built a greenhouse during COVID. We built a greenhouse and a
Wow.
little outdoor gym. And just because I'm up
Nice.
here, I'm gonna turn the camera around, and I don't know if you can see it from here, but
Wow. No, I see it. It's kinda it's not small.
no, it's not small. It's like I said, that's the greenhouse on the left,
Nice.
and
Nice. Beautiful.
then that's my gym over there, the
Oh, I
dojo on
see.
the
Is that a
right.
punching bag? The
Yeah,
dojo. There
yeah,
you go.
yep, yep, yep. Uh,
Get you a
and
black belt too or something on the weekends?
I mean, yes.
Yes, there you go, a little something. You said you lived a lot of lives, so
Yeah, and they're layers,
yes, yes,
and that's part of that competitive spirit that I have to be a founder, to have a company, and to enter into a
nice.
very crowded space. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
if you go to any grocery store and you look at the selection of coffee, can you imagine entering a more competitive
exactly.
landscape
It's
and trying to
bananas.
differentiate? So, like in high school, I was on a wrestling team. In college, I wrestled for 4 years in Division II. After that, I was playing jujitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu,
Wow,
and judo,
nice.
and now I've been most recently just training and just boxing and kind of mixed martial arts. And I'm not
Balanced
I'm just
life,
out here
balanced
doing my
life.
thing. I'm balancing on life, and that's kind of how I kind of just keep my body right, to keep my mind right. Um, because, it's easy to burn out, especially as a CEO, as a founder.
Yes.
There's this
Yes.
sort of grind mentality that we can't stop, don't stop. Come on, man. You
Got
better
to.
stop, or else you'll stop in your tracks. You'll get stopped, right? You'll have a stroke.
Exactly.
You'll have a heart attack, or you'll just kind of burn out and lose the spirit
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
not love it. You'll just kind of turn, be grumpy. And so I'm trying to pace myself. So in order to pace myself, I gotta plan, and it's going to take a lot of work. And I know it's not all, so I don't need to get all the work done in one day.
Yes. Yes.
And that's, you got to build a team around you, where you could delegate, and you do what you could do. But the hours that you're working, you got to, make the most of it and be effective at what you do.
Definitely.
Yeah, but pace
Now
yourself, eat well.
that's all important things.
Yeah, critical.
I mean, you mentioned more brick and mortar, but what is the future of Red Bay as you see it? If you could leave our guests with that last piece of insight.
Yeah. So, just my artist mind gets me to innovate. So I love developing new products, right? Like some of the things we're putting in cans are, things that we serve at our cafe, like a
Yes.
oat milk latte or something. But, there's a product also that we're going to put in a can, and it's a black coffee spritzer. And
Nice.
this is like, basically you could think of it as like a coffee soda, but light on the sweet, just a little bit of agave, iced coffee, sparkling. So it's without all the BS that you'll get in the soda. So
Yes.
that's a whole new category. We're doing edible coffee that you could eat in the form of like chocolate.
Okay.
Right. So we'll be introducing that. I'm giving you a little, breaking.
Yeah.
And that's some breaking news here. I ain't even introduced
Exclusive
that yet. Yes. So we're, I've invented kind of coffee making devices.
Nice.
So, that's the kind of things that keeps me going. So at Red Bay Coffee, we're developing a brand. It's a lifestyle brand. And with that, we'll be creating different products. We'll be opening up shops. Earlier in the life of Red Bay, I thought we would be in Brooklyn and Atlanta and Chicago and Philly and man, that's a lot to do. So now I think that COVID sort of, it was a nice little reality check, and it kind of refocused the mind. And so now our strategy on the brick and mortar is to really saturate California, Northern California, Southern California, with the retail experiences, but create content, interesting video, photography, just continuing to support the arts as part of the brand, sponsoring different art exhibits, concerts, whatever, and bringing that around. So that's how we see touching the rest of the country.
Very nice.
So we try to build, we just trying to continue to grow, build, and inspire a movement. Since we got started in 2014, right now, this is February 2022. This is our 8th year anniversary month.
Nice.
Man, there have been many Black-owned coffee companies have started, and this is what I've been instigating for. So, and I consult with them, right? If y'all need some game, call me. So I don't see it as a competitive piece as much as it is a movement. And there's so much coffee being consumed. It's enough out here for all of us.
There's enough for everyone to get it.
Yeah. And I'll just close with this. When I think about, why we even exist, Red Bay Coffee exists, is to bring beautiful coffee to the people. And when I'm talking about beautiful coffee, I'm talking about what David Robinson is doing in Tanzania.
Nice.
Right.
Nice.
and what we're doing here in Oakland, and just these relationships, and also that beautiful latte art, and that black charcoal vanilla latte that we make, or that candy yam latte that we make, right? So there's beauty in the whole value stream of everything that we do, and we're just trying to bring that and make it more accessible to our folks, who haven't always been tapped into the specialty coffee movement. So we trying to reclaim coffee. Like I said, coffee is Africa's gift to the world. If you identify as part of the African diaspora, I encourage you to claim your inheritance.
Nice. There you go. But yes. Okay, but you've dropped a lot of gifts and gems throughout this episode, so thank you very much for that. I'm definitely going to come out to Red Bay Coffee next time I'm in the Bay. But until then, I think everyone needs to know redbaycoffee.com. You can order this right now and see what it's like for yourself.
Appreciate you, Blue. Appreciate you, man. Great questions, great interview.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah.
No, thank you very much for your time, sir. And
all right.
Much success to you.
All right. Thank you very much.